lovers, and welcome. I want to start off by saying I am so blessed to be in a position to suggest tips and tools and even products that can help you lead a tantric life of liberation and expansion. And one of my absolute favorite places to purchase spiritual and sexy items is Wands. Wands.com, spelled Wands. Wands sells, you guessed it, crystal pleasure wands, along with so much more, including yoni eggs, free bleed blankets, other amazing products for yoni steaming. I've been using these products and products similar to them for the better part of a decade, and they have been incredible allies in my journey of sexual healing and expanding my orgasmic potential. And I'm so grateful to be friends with the owner, Courtney. She's amazing. She has so generously provided us all with a discount code for 15% off, and that code is Leola. Leola. You can use it on their website, www.wands.com. Again, the code is Leola, Leola, for 15% off. I'll also make sure that this is linked in the show notes. So thank you for listening, and you're welcome for the inevitable pleasure and healing that is coming your way with these products. Now, let's get into the episode. Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, I talk Tantra with David Mears. He is a master hypnotherapist and pleasure artist. I'm so grateful for his content and so appreciative that he's here on the podcast to offer his perspective of living an expansive life. So thank you for being here, David. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your journey with becoming a master hypnotherapist and pleasure artist? How did you discover this passion and purpose?
Thank you so much for having me. Um, well, the whole journey started, it started with hypnosis, and then took uh, it took a sexual turn about like 3 years ago. But I studied hypnosis. I mean, when you know about hypnosis, you know that you're doing hypnosis every day of your life, right? It's not like but I started really knowing about it and learning how to help people with it about maybe 6 years ago. Yeah, a little bit before lockdown, I started learning about it. Because I've always been fascinated with how the mind works, and especially how imagination works, and how imagination can really affect your life, and how it can become a tool, really. I wanted to be a film director, but it's as if this wasn't enough. And when I started reading about hypnosis, I knew this is exactly what I wanted to do, like to really immerse people into a new reality. And I've used it on myself to heal a lot of trauma, to heal a lot of grief. It started with grief of past relationships, and people in my life that disappeared, and death, and all that. And lucid dreaming was a big part of this journey. But it took me a while to find really someone that could really rely on and relate to as a mentor. And about 4 years ago, I found a mentor in South Africa, a friend of mine named Seth Gray, and he told me like the basics, and then I started really doing hypnosis for free for a year and a half to whoever I could practice on. And this, I have no intention of it becoming my job, basically. And then I figured I was pretty good at it. and but then I did long distance relationship with my ex-partner for more than 9 months. And I was like, hey, you can make people laugh on command. You can make people cry, you can make people believe they're a chicken or their hands are stuck or whatever. You can probably give orgasms with hypnosis, right? So then I started to dig that practice, and when it started to really work on my partner, when it started to work on my friends, when it started to work on my clients, when it started to work online with one person, two person, three person, I became really fascinated by this, and that led me really into the sexuality. Yeah.
Okay. It's fascinating your work. So I feel like if the average person were to go and look at your content, it would be like unbelievable or inconceivable.
Mm.
Going and looking at some of David's content. If you aren't familiar with him and you haven't already, go follow him on Instagram. It's Hypno Sound Love, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
that'll be in the show notes for you guys as well. But even just pausing right now and going and taking a look at some of the things that he is creating in the world, it's absolutely fascinating seeing someone go into a orgasm without any sort of genital stimulation, which is something I'm familiar with. And I've done a little bit of hypnosis as well. My husband's really talented in that way. um but to see it like I don't know, it's just fascinating. So how does it work, I think is my question.
But the thing is, it's a philosophy more than a technique, I'd say. It's why some people are, let's say, more suggestible than others. It's because some people, due to their past experiences and and so on, have already adopted this philosophy even without really being aware of it. And a philosophy is like it's a set of beliefs that kind of work together, right? It's a lens through which you see the world, and then everything makes sense through that lens. So I think hypnosis is really one of that lens, and the principle of hypnosis is really that whatever you really focus on and imagine vividly, you will experience it in your body, like physically.
Mm-hmm.
If it's vividly imagined, if you're immersed enough in this hallucination, let's say, well, your your body cannot make the difference. So you will feel everything as if it's real, at least at the subconscious level. This is why sometimes I hypnotize people. They are they are conscious. Usually they consciously know 100% that I'm hypnotizing them. They can sometimes even try to resist it, but they're subconscious, because even if consciously they don't, they can resist it, like don't believe it, because it's so incredible. Because they have agreed to it at the subconscious level, their body will start to react, and they're gonna be like, "Wow, this is actually fucking working!" They're gonna start to feel some body reaction, and
Mm-hmm.
and this we but the truth is that we hallucinate it. We hallucinate our reality constantly. But when suddenly you have someone that believes something so strong, uh, they can project that reality onto you. This is how you get influenced.
Mm.
So my job at the beginning, without talking about technique or whatever, it's really psychological. It's really social interaction and influence. So because I've learned through my experiences and my work and my learnings and my practices, that it's 100% possible, and actually it's easier than we think and everybody can do it. I arrive there and I can project that onto the other person. And because they are, well, open and excited, they will receive that version of reality, and it will affect them. Just the same way I can have people stop smoking, right? Or whatever. I just project it. It's a sort of projection of reality. It's strange, but in psychology, it's called subcommunication. It means that every time we interact with each other and we connect and we have a sort of rapport feeling, we have this rapport because at the subconscious level, without even us realizing it, we make a contract on what reality is. And if that person feels what my version of reality is, they will adopt it and I will be able to amplify it. It's a little bit how it works. I don't know if that makes sense. But because I don't want to speak about techniques, because at the end, at the beginning, I was teaching a lot of technique and I was teaching a lot of wording, etc., etc. And then I started to do it in Portuguese. And I don't speak a word of Portuguese. I was using just pleasure. I was only using the word placer and mas. And that's it. So it's not about the words. It's not about the technique. It's really about believing that it's real.
So what you're saying is the difference between you like facilitating this versus like a normal person just being like, come now to, you know, their partner or whoever, is your belief in the ability to create this result and having seen the evidence over and over again. Is that correct?
Yes. It's my belief, which in the end is confidence. It's the amount of confidence that I can come up to someone and influence them to the point that they will feel whatever I say as if it's real.
Fascinating.
To
So
go
cool.
beyond the orgasms.
And would you call the orgasms that you're facilitating like energetic orgasms, or like how would you classify them in this
And that's the thing.
point?
It really depends on the person. So usually when I do this kind of sessions, uh, it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like a proper session, like talking a week in events or whatever. Sometimes it can be on the dance floor at a festival, like literally. And I try to know what the person wants also. If the person wants something that is very energetic, they can choose actually. They can choose. It will be what they believe an orgasm is. If and if and also what they want. Maybe they don't want to get into like a sort of really genital based orgasm that is very like sexual and so on. So maybe they will want something maybe a little bit more spiritual. And because we are in rapport, I will be able to kind of sense that. So I will not go like BDSM and humiliation, degradation to someone that is very that really wants something that is in a way more spiritual and goddess-like feeling and vibrational and energetic, for example. So my job is really to find what the person resonates with, and if I'm really in tune with the person and I really have rapport, this comes with intuition, and this would lead to different orgasms. Some people I really have like crazy physical orgasm. Can be like anal orgasms, can be like whatever they want. And some people will have full body orgasms because this is what they have made up in their mind up to the session to be. Yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah.
And in that way, you are kind of taking this role of being in control of the climax and helping facilitate climax control. And then you brought in this piece on BDSM. And so I'd like to talk about climax control, BDSM, power play. How do those things relate to this world as well?
Yes. I think climax control is really part of this practice because from the very beginning to the end, you build a climax. And the thing is that it's not every time I start a session, it's it's never really about the climax, right? It's about like the amount of energy that you accumulate in the body. And because it's not genital based, the person, when it works, because it's not, I mean, it always works in a certain, in a way, there's never, but if the person is really in tune and feels the energy growing, the pleasure growing, it doesn't really depend on the, I think climax control is becomes so easy when it's more mental than physical, because it's a question of maybe sensitivity, but I think most of the people are so focused on their genitals than if they were more into the, if they had a more diffuse attention, they could always control their climax. And when we do this with hypnosis, because there is no genital mutilation, not mutilation. I always talk about genital mutilation actually in this podcast, because I really want to work with people who have gone through genital mutilation, because you
Okay.
can like create another clitoris on other places in the body and things like this. I was talking about genital stimulation, and because there is no genital stimulation, I think people's focus is much more geared towards pleasure itself rather than sensation. And I think when we focus more on the pleasure as a concept, we are able to kind of change it and morph it and make it bigger and make it smaller and make it whatever we want, rather than the sensation that are occurring, because sensation are external. So when sensations are external, we lose a little bit of control. I think this is a lot of the reason why a lot of people feel powerless, uh, like, and have sexual dysfunction, let's say, because but when you're going much more within and focus on pleasure, then climax control becomes so easy. And why it works so well also with hypnosis is because I'm taking away the sensation, the body stimulation. I mean, to a certain point. Usually when I do a session with someone in person, I will add some physical stimulation, but I never touch the genitals or whatever, because it completely defeats the purpose. But with the hypnosis, I take out the thinking, because my role is to do the thinking for them. And I take out the body stimulation. So all they have to do is just to focus on pleasure, which I remind them to do constantly over and over and over and again. And because they focus on pleasure, then they can manipulate it. And they manipulate it the way I want, because my voice becomes their thought. So it becomes like this whole system of me controlling their climax, but it's actually them accepting my suggestion to control their climax the way I tell them to. In any way, I'm like controlling their mind. Like, I mean, this is like, if you talk to a lot of hypnotists, they will say that hypnosis is not mind control. It can be mind control, but there's a part of letting go and losing control, but there's also a big part of it is to accept the suggestion and act upon them.
Yeah, it can be really liberating to actually consciously let someone else take the driver's seat for a second so that you can really focus on one thing. Like that's actually freedom in a way. It's freedom from your own narrative, taking someone else's on for liberation in a way. That's how I perceive surrender and things personally.
Absolutely, absolutely. So because what we do consciously is to set a destination in the GPS, right? And try to drive the car. But and the subconscious, in a way, it's everything that's happening, the landscape, etc., etc. So when we are busy putting the location in the GPS and trying to drive the car, well, we cannot necessarily enjoy the landscape, and we cannot necessarily enjoy the ride, which is the pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm trying to. This is my role, like like as a hypnotherapist, as a dominatrix, because I use this for my dom work as well, uh, and as a coach, basically. So yeah.
That's a great analogy to be like the driver of the car versus the passenger. It's kind of like becoming submissive is kind of like choosing to sit in the passenger seat. And it's a choice. It's not like you're, giving all of your power away forever and ever, but it is a choice to sit in the passenger seat and just enjoy the pleasure of the drive and the view. I love that. That's great. And then to be a
Yes.
dom is to say, I would like the responsibility and to be a steward of this person and their experience in a way.
Yes. 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 That's exactly it. Yes. That's also the way I see it.
Beautiful. So I'd love to talk more about the power play piece of it and like the dynamic and the BDSM as well. Could you share a little bit more about how this work influences that part of your work?
1 second.
Sorry. Did you rise it?
Oh, yes.
My apologies.
Sorry.
All good.
So the power play, how it comes? Yes, I think the success of a session, which in the end, for me, I just want the person to be satisfied and happy, and to have totally surrendered, and for me to have provided like an amazing experience where they could have where they can fully let go and experience things that are liberating, fascinating, where they learn things about themselves, where they solve problems at the subconscious level and have tons of pleasure and whatever. And there is an agreement to that. So when someone comes for this kind of session, basically for orgasmic session or erotic hypnosis, right? They agree to, yes, to submit. I think to submit to their role as 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 a surrenderer, let's say. Someone who all they need to do is to surrender and trust and follow my instruction. Like really, it's really simple. Like the concept is simple, but it takes a lot of work for some people to get there, and I think this is the difference between successful sessions and people who need a little bit more to build a little bit more trust, etc., etc. So when we come into BDSM, when I do my BDSM session with erotic hypnosis, when I work with my subs, the first session is always a hypnosis session, and people who are familiar with BDSM and who are familiar with being dominated, they're always the best subject. Like they always have the most amazing reactions. They go into trance so easily, and they respond so perfectly, and they make the most progress like every time. So there is this capacity for people to experience reality differently that comes from their capacity to surrender and submit. And from that can come so much growth, so much change, and I think way more than being in control and dominating.
Fascinating. Yeah, I'm definitely someone that's sort of a recovering control freak, and have learned the beauty that it's available and the healing available in the surrender and the trust. So I love that. Hello, lovers. Please bear with me for a brief interruption with a vulnerable share and offer from my heart. So, when I first began my journey with spiritual intimacy and sacred sexuality, all I could afford were books and free podcasts. I was just out of college in my early 20s and honestly very, very broke. And I'm so grateful for all the complimentary, kind words and affordable wisdom that have gotten me where I am today. Price shouldn't deter you from healing. It shouldn't deter you from living the life you love or from reclaiming the most powerful energy in your body. It's my belief that time and commitment are also very powerful investments, especially when you're just dipping your toes in the water. You'll know when it's time to make the bigger cash investments in your journey. But let's begin together today with free love from my heart to yours. As you've already discovered, this podcast is free and it includes so much life-changing wisdom, but I'd also love to guide you to some free offers that are on my website, including a downloadable sexual shadow work workbook and a pleasure positive meditation. Both of these resources are amazing places to start in integrating the tantric principles of expansion and liberation into your life. And you can access these at www.talktantratome.com/free or find a direct link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode. I'd like to go back to what you were saying about genital mutilation, but also even going even bigger into that topic and how you use the body to create different erogenous zones. And I think the whole body can be an erogenous zone without hypnosis, but specifically how you were using it. Like if you for the listener, you go on David's Instagram and it's like making a fingertip the clitoris or making the shoulder the head of the cock or whatever. It's like fascinating. Yeah. So I'd love if you could speak into what that is and the capacity available.
Yeah, and I even give guys a clitoris.
I've given my husband a clitoris in his third eye.
Oh, really? Wow, that's a good one.
It was great.
Yeah, because it's exactly like you said. The whole body it can be a erogenous zone. We have like all these billions of nerve endings, and so with hypnosis, we don't create something from nothing. We amplify what is already there. So this is something that is important. This is why it's really difficult for me, for example, to give an orgasm to someone who really believes they never had an orgasm. So what I have to do is to go back to everybody had climax, but they probably have dreamt of it, or I mean, if we go into past lives and so on, it is possible for them to experience it, even though they haven't had it consciously, physically in their lives. But it's all about amplifying something that is already there, and because the way it works is that, well, our body is a receptor for sensation, but pleasure and pain, it's a decision made at the subconscious level. Like until the signal reaches the brain, while we don't know if until the message reaches the brain that turns it into pain, we cannot know that something is painful or burning or something. So in a way, it's a decision that we make at the subconscious level, and nobody will feel things the same way. So, for example, people who are yes, some people love pain, some people love to be slapped, to be to be spanked, whatever. That BDSM is the best example for that. Is that some people have the capacity to turn pain into pleasure, and some people are also like can't stand being touched, or can't stand being hugged, or can't stand because of their experiences and their trauma, etc. So if we work with our belief system, we can turn these messages that we get through our body and create new meaning to them that will create new feelings in our body. Because pain and pleasure, it's just especially pleasure, it's just a release of chemical in our brain, and pain is it's that as well. It's just release of chemicals in our brain. So so it is very, actually it's a matter of belief, right?
Yeah.
If we can believe that something is and we do this all the time, huh? We do this when we want to be part of a group. A lot of people learn to like the taste of cigarettes because they want to be part of the group, because of habitual, because of the societal pressure or whatever. We get to change those messages in our brain, and this is how we do it with hypnosis. If under a state of trance, because that's what it is, it's the state of trance, it's the hypnosis allows you to go into trance where your critical mind gets bypassed. If your critical mind gets bypassed, then you can kind of reshape these beliefs. And if you reshape these beliefs, you can reshape the way you perceive and experience reality. So if I take someone into a state of trance and they're willing, they really believe, they're excited, and they really believe that I can do this for them, and I tell them that they have a clitoris on their earlobe, well, they will accept the suggestion and really believe they have a clitoris on their earlobe. Their body will react as if it's happening. Their body will suddenly, even though an earlobe doesn't have as many nerve endings that the tip of the clitoris, it doesn't matter, because the brain will believe it has even more, and will start secreting and releasing more pleasure chemicals.
Fascinating.
This is why also some because of trauma, because of abuse, a lot of women have hypersensitivity, for example, on the tip of the clitoris, and it becomes painful. But the problem is not physiological, it's then psychological. The hypersensitive and the pain comes from a belief they have around pleasure and sexuality that can come from past experiences and so on. But you can change that.
Yeah, and that's kind of leads me to the next thing that I was wanting to weave in here, which is that it's not just about the orgasms, although the orgasms are amazing, but this work can be really healing for a lot of people in many different ways. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. I mean, we've kind of woven it into different parts of the conversation, and it's my opinion that orgasms and pleasure, on their own, can be very healing, but I'd be curious to hear from your own words a little bit more about that part of your work.
Yes, but this, in the same way you can make someone believe they have a clitoris on their earlobes or on their shoulder, you can then make them believe anything about anything. Like that, I changed cigarettes into rotten pieces of chicken. Yeah. And if I bring cigarette, their body will start to jerk, and they will feel like they want to vomit or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just one example, but but you can make them believe that every time they see themselves in the mirror, they get more confident, um, or maybe someone has phobia of spiders, and you can just like give them a spider and their body, you can train their body to release the trauma of spiders under the state of hypnosis. And what is incredible is that the body reacts, and sometimes their mind is like, well, yeah, but I don't feel I'm under hypnosis, but the body is like tenses up, or the body like starts to shake or whatever, because it is 100% subconscious. So I know when people go there because they have signs of trance, they respond to my suggestion, and etc. etc. And once you're there, you can do crazy things. Like it's a technology, like literally.
Yeah.
You can change anything in a second. Like anything about anything, but it's just a matter of believing it. It's not really a matter of technique or whatever. And people who practice hypnosis, who have like practice hypnosis or going into trance, anything like meditation or changing their like, or just visualizing their goals very vividly and acting upon these visions, for example, they've trained their brain to perfect that technology. So for them to change something in their subconscious and to have the feeling of it instantly, it becomes super easy. This is a little bit different with the subject. Some people will have a lot of trouble to become more flexible. And some people, Americans usually are very flexible, for example.
Why do you think that is?
I think because culturally, there's way more fiction. I think it's a younger country, so it's like the roots are not so like deep, let's say. It's a good thing, huh? It both have good things and bad things. You know, if the roots get too deep, it's hard for people to change their mind because they're so sure about everything. Like, for example, people in Europe, they become so sure about everything that it becomes really difficult for them to change their mind, to change their beliefs, even though these beliefs doesn't make them happy.
Yeah.
But Americans, it's more like a word of fiction. But it's it's more innovative, let's say. You can pitch an idea and have people like believe in it and invest in it and so on and so on. So it's like they're good, they're bad. Sometimes I have to hypnotize people not to be hypnotized because they're so suggestible. Like I can make crazy changes in one day, but then they go back to their house and they go back to see their friends and blah blah blah. They go into trance and poof, they go back to exactly where they were 2 days ago. So it's like
fascinating.
It's a little bit like a dance in the mind. Yeah.
That reminded me of another piece that I want to bring in around like the shadow side of this work and like to have that much power, obviously, and to be able to surrender. But how do you, as a practitioner, but also as a person receiving this work, know how to discern when and how to play in the space?
So when it's so I had this conversation the other day with a psychologist. So I don't use eroticism during my hypnotherapy session, for example. So when I'm a hypnotherapist, I work with ethics, right? And what is ethical in the profession. But when I'm a dom, for example, I work with consent. So yeah, and consent is really like the foundation of kink and BDSM, and
Yeah.
every relationship is based on that. So this is how I create the experiences for people. It's through consent. And what I do is that I should have sent you this form. It's a big form. I send them a form. Even if I had worked with them before, even if I see them every weekend, they have to fill up this form. And it's a form where with like maybe 200 questions where they have to explain exactly what they want, how they want it, and on the scale from 1 to 10, how excited they are about the idea. So it
Nice.
goes from having them experience double penetration under hypnosis, having them experience a sexual scene under hypnosis, having them experience
Wow.
me touching them under hypnosis, or me putting myself into the scene,
Yeah.
Which is, for example, something that I never do the first at least 3 sessions. Is no, 2 sessions, depends. Is, for example, to put myself into the hypnosis. Like, for example, now I'm in the scene doing that to you, and you're gonna come, because for me, this is like crossing the line between providing an experience and intimacy. Like,
Yeah.
so there's this big, and this is my boundaries as well. So when I get into the erotic side of it, I take a lot of time to prepare the session, to prepare the person, to make sure that the person have the capacity to express their boundaries. They know how to express their boundaries. They know their safe words. They have I have them rate their self-esteem from 1 to 10. And if it's under 6, I wouldn't do an erotic session, or I wouldn't do a dominatrix DS session, for example. I would do more hypnotherapy work before, more like coaching work or whatever. Yeah, it's really deep, but it's actually the part of the work that I like the most, is to see how people actually know what they want before engaging into something first that they have never experienced before, and that they know so little about, and with someone they have never met. So this is really something I love when people start, and usually when people send me the form, they would have known about themselves much more than they would have found aspects of themselves they had no idea they had, or desires they had no idea they had, or boundaries they had no idea they had. Yeah. And I work all my sessions are based on that.
And are most of your sessions virtual, in person? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm doing more in-person work now, because I'm doing most of my hypnotherapy and coaching online, and most of my DS dominatrix in person. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you also obviously have trainings all over the place, in France, in South Africa, 2 of my favorite places. What happens at your trainings? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I have 2 trainings. I have one hypnotherapy trainings, which is really about hypnosis and training people with hypnotherapy, which is the Masters of Hypnosis training, which is more like everything that has to do with hypnosis. So from street hypnosis to hypnotherapy, to erotic hypnosis. So I try to deliver to nonverbal communication as well, because this is really something that I use a lot now. I'm trying to use more and more nonverbal communication, and gaze and sounds, and I'm training a lot in Shibari right now. My goal is to hypnotize people while tying them and have them orgasm in the ropes. Yeah,
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
For me this is the goal this year. Like yeah.
I
And
love it.
so this training is bigger, is a week and more. If people want certification, it goes on with weekly calls, and everything is online, so it's like a big container. And I did, and I keep on doing these weekends where I teach erotic hypnosis. And I try to go like very fast, cut to the chase, and I have people practice and experience it. So
Wow.
it's little groups of maximum 15. So I always try to have them to have a cozy space, a nice apartment, and yeah, for one day I go really into the technique and the philosophy and the mindset, and safety and consent, and the more like the base, the foundation to have for people to feel confident and safe, whether they're receiving it or giving it. And the next day it's more practical. Yeah. So the first day I demonstrate, and well, usually it's really organic. Actually, it depends with the group, because
Yeah.
there's always people that I train dominatrix, I train people who are really, really deep into Tantra, psychologists, sexologists, and just normal people like couples and who come. So everybody has something to bring in. So I try to make it more like a conversation. And it can be like we're talking about a topic, and the vibe of the group is more geared towards BDSM and authority. So I will take a volunteer and start to dominate them and do the technique in a way more authoritative way than if I would do it if the whole group would want something more more energetic and light and soft, right? So it depends.
Okay.
Again, I
Fascinating.
try to really give the people what they want. Yeah,
I'll be there one of these days. I was
that'd be
I was
amazing.
gonna go to the one in Paris, but then I found out that it was only in French, and I know very little French. So maybe South Africa one of these days.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm doing one in Berlin. Usually I do one in Berlin, one in Paris, and now in Ibiza I'm gonna do, yeah.
okay,
But I would
cool.
love to go to the States actually.
Come to Austin. I can get the crew together. I can totally market this.
That'd be amazing. Maybe I'll do it actually. Yeah,
You
that'd
should.
be
You should.
amazing.
I host, play parties and tantra events here all the time, and it's the market is here. So, um
Awesome.
getting ready to land the conversation, is there anything else you'd like to add? Are you feeling complete? I feel like we got lots of good stuff, but want to open it up to you.
Anything I'd like to add? I mean, I think my goal now, especially this year, because I was I don't know, I started it and I was making the courses a little bit expensive and everything. And the feeling I have now, because I've digged it so much, and it's just is that people have no idea what communication can be actually.
Mm-hmm.
Because hypnosis is just communication. Like all I'm doing is just talking to someone to orgasm.
Yep.
And I mean, and if people would stop, maybe I should stop using the word hypnosis, for example. Like what we can do with simple connection, with deep connection and rapport, because it's really rapport. It's this feeling of really connecting with someone and being like super present with someone. This is how I get results, is by connecting with the person and knowing what they like and feeling the person. This is what makes them orgasm, makes them go into these states. And I think beyond hypnosis, this is really what I'd like to communicate, I'd like to really teach, I'd like to really like show people that communication can be so much more profound than just words. Like I could be using the same words on 100 people. I will have 100 different reactions.
Yeah.
Words are so little. People ask me for scripts, etc., etc. Like, there's no way I can give you a script. This is really just connection. And I think this hypnosis, how I do it, is my way of communicating the words, etc., the technique, and the confusion that I give them, etc. But I think sex is communication as well. It's ways to get a feeling. It's all of this is what I really believe in. Sex is a way to feel something. It's not the goal in itself, and the hypnosis is not also the goal. Is just these are just ways to communicate feelings to each other. And I think people really overlook that, and people always want to learn tricks and techniques, but in the end, it's just connection and presence.
Yeah, I can see how understanding this work can impact like your whole life in that way. So thank you for ending on that. And thank you again, David, for just being here. And for the followers, the listeners, in the show notes, you'll see David's Instagram and website and all those things. So you can see what he's creating in the world and how you can get involved in it. But thank you for being here, David. And I also want to express my gratitude to the listener. Thank you once more for opening yourself up to the idea of sacred sexuality. With so much gratitude and love, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta. Oops, just kidding. Still here. I have one last thing for y'all. I want to say that the internet is a really, really special place. It's why we're all here right now. And many of us, including me, wouldn't have discovered Tantra or sacred sexuality if it weren't for this nifty invention of the 20th century. And almost none of you would have found my work and my vision without it. I love the internet, and I deeply desire to expand beyond it, to experience more real life love, community, and connection. So I invite you to check out upcoming Tantra events at www.talktantra2me.com/events, or click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to give you a big squeeze in real life. Okay, now that's it. Ta-ta for real. Ta-ta.